Hello, and welcome to Charted, an astrology podcast. My name's James, and today we are going to talk about the ninth house in astrology. So the ninth house is kind of seen as one of the better houses, and generally speaking, I'd say probably maybe third best, depending on how you want to qualify that. The 5th and the 11th are generally kind of considered the best because they just got a lot of good qualities, but the ninth is very good also, and specifically, the ninth has a very strong influence on who we are, in shaping who we are and expressing who we are, right? And we'll see this in a moment. So what's the ninth house about, right? Let's look at it astronomically first, and then we can kind of unpack it from there. So first and foremost, where is the ninth house at? Well, if we are going in order, which we are, right? The 7th house was the western horizon. The 8th house was just above that, which means the 9th house is going to be just above the 8th house. Or more specifically, right, it's going to occupy that area of sky that's kind of between the sky sitting above the western horizon and the top of the sky, right, straight up above us. So mathematically, that's going to be 60 degrees above the western horizon, and it's going to be, or alternatively, 30 degrees kind of to the west if you look straight up. So that's about where the ninth house would be. So what does that mean? Well, number one, very obviously, means it's on the top half of the chart, it's in the sky, which means it's going to deal with things that are public. There's a public element to the ninth house, and we'll see this for sure. It's a very public house. It's about things that are very much out in the world and how we interact with that. Number two, it's on the western half of the chart, so it's still going to deal with other people. It's not as tied to other people as, say, the 8th or the 6th, but it's still going to have some other people-centric quality to it in terms of how it functions. Next, it is a cadent house. It's part of the 10th house triad. It is what came before the 10th house. So in a way, you could say it's kind of expelled its energy. It's depleted. The cadent houses generally require energy to kind of maintain them a little bit more rather than you put in energy and it kind of benefits you. But with the ninth, there's so much other good qualities going on that it kind of overrides that a little bit. And it's kind of, we saw that same dynamic with the third house. Third house isn't like truly a negative house necessarily, but it's not one that necessarily is flowing with kind of good stuff either. It's pretty neutral, all things considered, but it can be very good. But the ninth house kind of has a similar quality to it, except in this case now it's a trine relationship with the first house, right? So that's the next quality. Trine is an easy flow. By whole sign, it means two signs are the same element. And so when they are the same element, they're speaking the same language, right? They're operating in the same plane of existence. And so for the ninth house, then, it's dealing with qualities that are very resonant to ourself, and in a lot of ways are going to really easily influence us, as well as easily be expressed through who we are. The ninth house is the joy of the sun. What is the sun about? The sun's about our identity. It's about our consciousness. It's about our purpose. It's what we show up to kind of do in life and be in life, and who we decide that to be, and how we decide to be, and what we decide to be, and what we decide to do with that being that we are. And so the sun, then, this identity, this consciousness, this light, this purpose is really going to kind of manifest through the ninth house. And we'll see that. Lastly, the ninth house is in opposition to the third house. All right, what's the third house? Third house is about our local space. It's what's around us and how we interact with that. It's our communication, our kind of more day-to-day talking to people, so forth. It's our skills that we build up through practice and repetition. It's the daily routines, the daily practices that we have. It's the people we see in our day-to-day life. It's the things that we do, the places we go in our day-to-day travels. And the ninth house being in opposition means it's going to have that same nature but mutually exclusive quality that we've talked about with the opposition. And so then the ninth house is going to embody things that are not local, right? So what do we get when we kind of put all that together? Well, the ninth house is going to represent broadening our horizons. It's kind of a summation of everything. What do I mean by that? Well, it's the joy of the sun. And what is the sun doing in the ninth house? Right? What does that tell us about that part of the day? It's actually the hottest part of the day when the sun's in the ninth. Why? Well, because the sun is still heating the earth as it moves right up into the top of the sky, into the 10th, straight above us, around noon. But then as it moves into the ninth house, it's still kind of doing its job, heating the earth up. And it doesn't really kind of reach peak heat, especially during the summer, until it's well into the ninth. And that's when finally the cooling, right, kind of begins. So the ninth house is kind of where the sun is going to fulfill its purpose, right? It doesn't fulfill it quite yet in the 10th. That's where it's most active, where it's brightest. But it's now in the ninth is where it kind of fulfills its purpose. So there's this element of purpose then that is within the ninth, right? And how do we achieve our purpose? Well, the first thing you have to remember is, as a person, when you were born, you're a little baby. And what do babies need to do? They need to grow, which means they need to eat and so forth. But then once you're no longer a baby, you become a child. What do you have to do then? You have to learn. Because you can't really operate in the world if you don't learn. And so you're constantly expanding your sense of knowledge. And what happens when you expand your sense of knowledge? You expand your sense of what's out there in the world. And you expand your sense of, right, views and qualities. And you begin to formulate things. Maybe some of it you certainly get by just nature of, right, your parents' belief systems and so forth. But as you go out into the world as an adult, especially a young adult, what do? You experience new things. And as you kind of go on your journey to become whatever it is you want to be, an artist, an architect, an engineer, right, a salesman, whatever it is you set your sights on to go out and do, you ultimately have to interact with other people and you have to learn new things. You have to grow who you are because you are not innately capable of hitting and fulfilling that purpose when you're born. So the ninth house then is how we go about growing our boundaries, growing our horizons so that we can fulfill our purpose. So in a lot of ways, the ninth house kind of shows purpose to an extent. Purpose is kind of a nuanced subject. I don't know if I'd necessarily ascribe it solely to the ninth house. Certainly, sun would be a huge component of that too. But the ninth house is going to show how we broaden our horizons in order to achieve that purpose and in order to just better ourselves. So what all does this entail then, right? Well, number one, it's going to mean the ninth house is going to represent things that innately challenge us in terms of who we are. And more specifically, what part of who we are is it challenging? It's going to challenge kind of our broader mind. If the third house is looking at things that are local to us, our skills, our practices, the ninth house is going to represent things that are foreign to us, things we have to pick up through learning, through teaching. So the ninth house is going to represent things like universities, right? Higher education. But more specifically, it's going to represent things that provide wisdom and experience. Because wisdom and experience are things that grow who you are beyond what you initially were. And I want to make a distinction here. Gaining a skill that requires repetition is very different from gaining experience and wisdom. Why? Because a skill is something you're just honing a gift that you already have. Right? The repetition just gets that muscle memory going, or mental agility going. Whatever it is, right? It's something that you practice. Why? Because then you do it without a second thought. It's that moon and its joy in the third house quality. But with the ninth house, we're looking at things that are more solar in nature. It's joy of the sun. So it's things that are more conscious oriented, which is going to be things like wisdom. And wisdom comes through what? Through learning. Through experiencing the world and seeing how things really are. And so what then does this mean? It means the ninth house is going to represent all forms of teaching and all forms of education and all forms of wisdom that is passed down in any form or another. This means it's also going to represent what? Religion. Because what is religion? Religion, be careful with my words here, because there's different viewpoints certainly on how people look at it. But religion, as a broad scope, generally exists to provide people what? Higher purpose. But also it's something that teaches us how to be wise, how to be learned, right? In old times, in ancient times, maybe not even ancient, certainly in medieval times, by that point at least, most universities were religiously denominated, right? They were started by the churches, especially in Europe, right? So religion has always kind of gone hand in hand with teaching in a lot of senses. Because again, what is it looking at? It's looking at the higher power or higher powers and teaching us their wisdom, so to speak. Right? So the ninth house deals with religion, it deals with education, and education more as a university level or above, right? Higher education, higher learning, things you don't learn by just kind of your basic concepts in elementary school. Ninth house then is also going to deal with things that, or people I should say, that teach us those things. So the ninth house will represent our teachers. So if you have ninth house transits, sometimes it's dealing with a teacher that you have. Or you meet a new person who acts as somebody to give you wisdom of some kind. The ninth house is also going to represent faraway places. Why faraway places? Because faraway places are places beyond your own horizons, right? Third house deals with what you do in your local space, and what happens? You become familiar with what's around you. But when you move to somewhere else, right, that you're unfamiliar with, what happens? You now have to learn new experiences. You have to deal with new people, possibly deal with new cultures. And when you rub up against new cultures, what does it do? It challenges you. Forces you to reflect and say, hey, what do I believe? Am I doing things in a way that actually makes sense? Because they're doing it in a different way. They're believing different things. And so the faraway places aspect of the ninth house means it's going to be the places we travel to, right? And it's going to represent people from faraway places, or the people we interact with in faraway places. And faraway it's a pretty vague term. Certainly it means other countries, but it can also be places that are just, if you've grown up and lived in the same town and you've never moved beyond that your whole life, then faraway place could just be the city 10 miles down the road because you've never been there. The ninth house is also going to represent as an extension of all of this wisdom and experience. And it's going to represent our beliefs and our belief systems, right? Because if it's representing the things we learn and the experience we gain and the wisdom we gain and the religions that we interact with, or spirituality even, then what do we do with all of that stuff? We formulate our beliefs. And our beliefs shape who we are and how we do things. So the ninth house in a lot of ways is the house of our worldview and how that's expressed And what our worldview says about us, or what worldview we hold, will ultimately shape how we view our purpose in life. If you pertain to a particular religion, for example, you may see it as your purpose to go out and evangelize, or to go out and to serve the poor. Whereas if you have another particular religious view, or maybe non-religious view, you may see it your purpose as to go out and have a family, to build a family, and to be the best parent you can be, or to go out and have a successful career. Right? Whatever your beliefs are, and the culmination of all of those with the culmination of all the experiences you have, that shapes how you view your place in the world, your purpose in the world. And so the ninth house really is dealing with all of that stuff that we go out into the broader scope of things to experience and to do, and how it shapes us. And then therefore, what we do with it and how it drives us. And that's that trine influence, right? Our beliefs are very largely going to show who we are. I think in this kind of polarized time period we're in politically, right? A lot of people are very much seemingly wanting to not go along with people that have opposite beliefs anymore, at least here in the West, and especially in the United States. And so that's kind of an odd thing that's occurred over the last, 10 years, 15 years. But that's not a good way to be. Because if you don't experience other things, other cultures, other belief systems, it doesn't really, challenge you. It doesn't really allow you to grow. And so it's necessary that we have a broad and open mind. One of the things, if you look at a Sagittarius rising is so open to new experiences, and ultimately they become so wise when they're older, is because they have the Leo in the fifth house, right? Leo's about our sense of identity, our sense of self-expression. So for Sagittarius, they self-express through what? Through finding new experiences, through broadening their horizons, through taking all that knowledge and learning and wisdom, right? And so this is the thing that we can see with one particular sign, how they kind of embody that. That's why Sagittarius, a lot of people tend to think, Sagittarius, ninth house are kind of one and the same. They're not, but Sagittarius really likes the ninth house. Another sign that also you tend to see is very intelligent sign, right? And that is going to be Virgo rising. If you look at Virgo rising, they have Taurus in the ninth house. And Taurus is about safety. It's about stability, strength. It's where we kind of put our material kind of sense of stability together. And so for Virgos, learning and wisdom and new experiences are their form of safety. That's why Virgos are always wanting to learn new things, master new skills, because it just feels safe. It's a place of comfort. So the ninth house, right, to kind of sum it all up, as I said, is about our broadening our horizons. It's about how we grow ourselves beyond who we are. And it therefore is all the things that entails, that being education, learning, the people that teach us, the people we run into that have influence on us, our gurus, pastors, priests, professors, right? Or just the person that you meet with on Saturdays, because they are helping you out and teaching you something about life. It's also going to represent, right, the places we go to far away from where we are now and the people we interact with in those places. And it's going to represent our belief systems, both religious, political, philosophical, what have you. Everything to do with what we believe about ourselves and what we believe about the world more broadly. Because all of that is shaped through all the learning and experience that we go through. if we look at the ninth house in relation to the other houses, obviously, as I've said, the trines are going to be the first, right? Makes sense. Your belief systems, how you grow yourself is very much a natural flow to just the self, right? Very easy connection there. But then it's also trine to the fifth house. What does that mean? Well, the fifth house is about our passions. It's about our creativity. And if we have an ability to grow ourselves, right, and find our purpose through growing and through educating and through learning and through fulfilling our kind of filling up our beliefs, that's ultimately going to shape what we are passionate about and where we apply our sense of creativity. And, right, new experiences often come with what? New people, competition, fun, pleasure. Right? When we interact with others in a way that's fun and entertaining, we tend to, at times, have new experiences. So there's a natural resonance there. As I've mentioned, right, the opposition is going to be third house, and third house is about our local space. It's not about going beyond what we know. It's about staying with what we already know and honing that and dealing with that. Whereas the ninth is more, hey, I'm looking at the bigger picture, looking at the broader perspective. I want to get out into the world, not stay in my own little neighborhood, right? And that's a very easy opposition to see, probably one of the easiest, actually. By square, the ninth is going to be square the, let me think about this for a second, the sixth house, right? Why? Well, when you go beyond your horizons, that means you're inherently taking a risk, right? You're putting yourself in a position you are not sure of. And that means you're going to run into things that you weren't expecting. Or you might run into people who have different beliefs than you, who have different ways of doing things than you. And sometimes this is fine, sometimes it's kind of dangerous, right? You go to a part of the world that has a very, very dogmatic religious view of how certain people should be, and you of that, right, certain people group, you're going to be in trouble. And so the sixth house representing crisis and how we handle challenge and obstacles means obstacles and challenges are naturally going to come up through the ninth house. But that's an uncomfortable thing to deal with, right? It's a difficult aspect there in a square to each other. And there's that natural tension between having to grind through things and the wisdom that comes from it. Wisdom and experience don't come from just easy going stuff. It comes from challenge. The other square is going to be the 12th house. 12th house represents hidden things, represents isolation and the subconscious. The challenge that comes with this square is going to be two things. Number one, sometimes you go to faraway places, but that isolates you from what you know and from who you know. And so when that happens, right, you're alone. And that's the nature of the 12th house, and that's the kind of tension there that comes in. Number two, our subconscious can play tricks on us or do lots of funny things because it's built around a lot of the dynamics we had as children, right, and how we were raised. And so sometimes that stuff can really trigger us and prevent us from really growing in a way that's healthy, right? And prevent or at least challenge, right, that growth. Or alternatively, as we learn new things, we may discover stuff that really challenges our subconscious, right? If you grow up in kind of a broken childhood, for example, and you go to therapy, therapy is a new experience, and it's you're getting that kind of wisdom from a teacher, but it's going to be something that's going to challenge your subconscious. You have to retrain yourself. And that's a difficult experience. And so that's the nature of the square between the 12th and the 9th. What about the sextiles? The 9th is going to be sextile to the 11th. The 11th deals with social groups, deals with hopes and dreams. And if the house of kind of growing ourselves to fulfill our purpose, right, has an interaction with our hopes and dreams, then it would make sense that it would be a sextile. One presents opportunity to fulfill the other. Alternatively, social groups, other people, as we go out into the world and experience new things, we get the opportunity to meet new people, to gain new followers, to gain new friends. And so that's that sextile relationship between the 9th and the 11th. The other sextile is going to be the 7th. Why? Because again, what happens when you grow your beliefs, when you broaden your horizons, right, allows you to interact with people in a way that's much more cohesive. Alternatively, when you are in a close partnership with somebody, they are naturally going to challenge you. They are naturally going to bring into your life their own set of beliefs, their own set of wisdom, their own set of experiences that shape who they are. And that's something that's naturally going to promote and provide that same dynamic for you, or you for them. Right? So it's, again, another opportunity based on your close interactions. The houses that are in the aversion to the 9th are going to be the 10th. And of the kind of next to each other aversions in the chart, the 9th and 10th is probably one of the least frustrating, probably the easiest to manage, because one naturally flows to the other. Right? What is the 9th house about? It's about our beliefs. What's the 10th house about? 10th house is about our public image. It's about our career. It's what we are doing out in the broadest sense of the world, our public life. And so the 9th house being our belief systems, that's naturally going to flow into what we are doing, what we are being out in the world. But the disresonance is the fact that one does not necessarily need to be, right, the same as the other. And at times in our lives, we may run into issues or run into situations where one doesn't match up with the other, right? We may have a job, but our job might not be our purpose. We may be known as, famous in a particular career, but that career might not be our purpose, might not be where we're applying our growth. And so that's the disresonance between them. The other is going to be the 8th house. The 8th house, as we talked about last week, is about danger and taboo. And as you go out into new places and experience new things, what do you run into? You run into other cultures that have their own sense of what they find to be dangerous and taboo. And that's the disresonance there, where sometimes you go into places that are not really safe for yourself, or you go into places where, hey, wait a minute, right? They have a totally different paradigm of what they find to be acceptable. And now I'm kind of breaching on that. Eighth house also deals with things we share, right? Exchange, shared resources, intimacy. And obviously, if you're dealing with a house that's more oriented towards getting out into the broader world, that's not something you necessarily share with everybody. You don't want to be intimate with everybody in the broader scope of the world. So again, there's that disresonance. The other disresonant houses are going to be the 2nd. The 2nd being our personal resources, our values. And this one's kind of a weird one because on the one hand, right, because it's an in conjunction, 150-degree aspect, right? Sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. It's kind of almost a cross between a trine and an opposition. Sometimes it's just a hard, this is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's not. But in this case, what you get is values, our personal character, is going to be shaped by our beliefs a little bit, or alternatively is going to shape our beliefs in spite of what we learn and know, right? We hold on to one, whereas the other is actively asking us to change. And so that's the disresonance. And at times that can work out very nicely because when you learn something new, right? Say you convert to a new religion, what is that going to do? It's going to inherently change your values, which is, again, that second house thing. So that natural change may be comfortable, may be easy. Sometimes it's not going to be. And that's the disresonance there. Also, traveling to faraway places is expensive, usually. And so that's another way that there's a bit of a disresonance there. The last of the aversion aspects is going to be the fourth house. The fourth house represents our home and our family and our private life, and going out into the broader world to experience new things is certainly disresonant with how we are at home, because if your home is always on the move, that's a very awkward place to be. There's not really that sense of safety any longer. There's no longer a sense of stability, that rock you can kind of go back to. And so that's why they're disresonant, right? One is very inherently about going out, taking risks, doing new things, and one is about, no, I'm here, I'm home, I'm in my safe place. So that's the ninth house. Again, very much about our purpose, broadening our horizons, learning, education, beliefs, worldview, and so forth. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I am a practicing astrologer, so if you're interested in reading, you can contact me, James, at jdastrology.com, or just go to my website and you can click through it there at jdastrology.com. So thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to the next episode.